Once more we have our oral history microphone, and we're doing a visit, this time with Bruce Johnston and his wife. Now, Bruce lives on the bottom road, and he is going to tell us about his family and some of the things that happened when he was growing up, getting married, going to school, working, as all other people, of course, do. Bruce, it's real fine for you to let me interview you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your coming, you and your wife. Now, you were born in Marshall County, were you?
Yes, sir. I was.
Was that the north side of the county? I know you lived down toward Sharp now.
Yes, it was the north side. That's right.
Mm-hmm. And what was your father's name?
John Clarence Johnston.
John Clarence Johnston. And I understand your first name is not really Bruce, it's
Robert.
Robert the Bruce. Did you know that's a famous Scottish leader?
That's what I'm being told. Robert Bruce and the Spider.
Yeah, oh, he knows the story. I'll tell you, you're sharp in history. Well, the people who put the T in it, I guess, were the Scottish descendants, although that may have, on the frontier, people didn't always spell exactly alike, and the John sons were the ones who claimed to be Irish, I guess. Or maybe,
that's right.
And left out the T. But here in America, those are details. Now, who was your mother?
My mother was Donnie Riley. She was the eldest daughter of Commodore Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Lived in the Oak Level area in her youth.
Now, there's the Rileys and the Johnstons then were kin, I guess, in a number of places. In fact, there's a man named Riley Johnston who lives here in Benton. Is he related to you?
Yes, he's one of my older brothers.
Okay, all right, and you might even be kin to Lake Riley.
Yes, Lake Riley and I are first and third cousins.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, now, how many people were there in your father's family? You said you had a brother.
Okay, the first child died in infancy at 18 months old, and then there were 3 boys and a girl.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of your grandparents on either side?
Yes, I do. On my father's side was Marion Johnston, was my grandfather. His father was Harrison Johnston. His father was Lard Johnston, and his father was Absalom Johnston, which is about...
Oh my, you've done better than anybody I think I've ever interviewed in the county, going back, 5 generations?
Something like that.
That's absolutely fabulous. Now, did you know any on your mother's side?
My mother's father was Commodore Riley, and his father was Eldridge Riley, and they came from North Carolina, and I can't go back any farther than Eldridge. Eldridge was buried out from out in the Farmers Cemetery, and I don't know if that's in Marshall or Graves County,
Mm-hmm.
but he has a marker there.
All right, well, you've made all the genealogists who will be checking this in the library in years to come very happy, I know, by accounting for a number of generations there. Well, being born on that side of the county, did you go to a one-room grade school?
Yes,
maybe?
I did. I went to the old McCain School.
I've heard that name several times before. A number of people that have been interviewed have mentioned McCain. In fact, at the superintendent's office now, they have a map that shows all the 77 one-room schools that at one time or another operated in Marshall County, and I believe the high water mark for any one year was 56. And McCain is very prominent there. In fact, it wasn't all that far distant, as I remember, from the Griggs School.
No.
Which they've rebuilt on the campus at the high school now.
They were close.
Mm-hmm. But the idea was that no one would be more than 3, at maximum 4 miles walking distance from a one-room school. And many of them achieved a distance of being no more than a couple of miles apart. So you went to McCain, and do you remember any of the teachers you had?
Oh, yes. I went, I think I attended most of the time to Curtis. She was Curtis Griggs then. Later she married Glenn Morrison, which was Curtis Morrison. She passed away not long ago. I also went to school with to Ruth Morrison, who is Ruth York, and I also went to school to Alva Dickey. She's presently in the rest home here in Benton, and I went to Virgie Thomason, and I also went to Edith Thomason, or Edith Barnes it is. Edith Barnes it is now, yes.
I think Miss Virgie Thomason may have been the last teacher that taught at the Griggs School. It seems to me that was 56 when it went out of operation. Anyway, she taught there quite a while.
Yes, she did.
Although she taught a number of places, she told me the other morning when I interviewed her that she taught Janie Bell Blumenberg at Oak Valley. So, all right. What did you like about those one-room schools?
Oh, I don't know.
Recess?
I guess that's the main thing I was interested in is on the games we would play.
Tell us about some of those. Now, we've heard of a few. We've heard of Wolf Over the River. And,
one of them, yes. Fox and Dog.
Now, the fastest boy generally was chosen
Right.
to be the fox.
Right.
And he'd run away. The worst whipping I ever had in my life was for playing Fox and Dogs. We normally would just run, and we'd get back in time for, as we called it, to take up books.
Right.
But that day, we decided that we'd just run clear off. The boys made it up, and we got back about 2 in the afternoon. Well, the teacher whipped us. We bent over a desk, and he laid the wood to us. Well, most of the boys cried. Well, I was I guess might have been 7th or 8th grade, I forget which, but I decided that I wasn't going to cry, so I didn't. And when the teacher got through, he said, well, how did you like that? And in the most hateful way that I could muster, I said, I didn't even feel it. Well, that made that teacher so angry. He almost died of high blood pressure. He turned me back over that desk, and I mean, he liked to kill me. That's the way I remember Fox and Dogs. Don't believe I want to play that.
No.
All right, any other kinds of...
Well, we had the outdoor basketball courts, and then we had another game we called town ball, which was very similar to baseball today. But I guess you others have talked about town ball.
Well, very few have ever mentioned town ball.
Instead of...
Could you cross a person out?
So that's what you did. You crossed him out. Just threw the ball across in front of him instead of tagging him or hitting him to the base.
Having played that, I remember, or I thought I remembered, that you just crossed them out.
Right.
And of course, we'd skip rope, and the girls would play hopscotch, and sometimes even brought their dolls to school, and I don't know what all we did do, but it was a lot of fun. And
then the spelling bees
and
arithmetic matches.
I've been trying to find somebody that would say whether they ever called those cipher matches.
I don't know that.
Well, still, I'll keep trying. But On the along toward the end of the year, or before Christmas, did they put on any programs?
There was the community Christmas tree, and that was just about a month before school was out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yes, we would have. Oh yes, we would have a program, right? Recite verses, and maybe someone be a little play, or maybe someone would, a couple or three might sing some Christmas carols, and then we would pass out the gifts.
You draw names.
Draw names, right?
And get a gift for someone.
So the Christmas tree was a community affair. It was a get-together.
Now, when you tried to raise money for these little schools, did you ever have things like, say, a box supper or pie supper?
Yes. Ice cream suppers, box suppers, pie suppers, and so forth. Yes, we did.
All right, now, let's get back to your starting out to work. Was your dad a farmer?
Yes, he was.
So you had to learn to work on the farm. About
Yes.
how early did you start?
You mean how early in life did I...
Did you, as maybe a 10-year-old, start milking a cow or drop tobacco plant?
Oh, yes, or earlier than that. As long as I can remember, we'd have to help on the farm. As quick as we were big enough, we'd have to go to the field and help.
Mm-hmm. So everybody had a job.
Everybody
in those
had
days,
a job.
and that kept them occupied. And we didn't have much time to get too much meanness, did we?
Well, not too much, but we had our lighter moments at least.
Let me ask you this. Now, I can recall this from my own school days. On Halloween night, did you ever sneak out and turn over an outdoor privy?
Well, I don't think I ever did exactly that, but I've done some things just about as bad on Halloween night. But that was one of the things, yes. Also, putting a wagon up on a roof or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing they would do, they would take a wagon wheel off of a wagon and get a stump, get a tree about that size, and cut it off just above the hub, and then push the wheel down on this stump,
Mm-hmm.
and then put a peg in there, and you couldn't get that wheel off. You'd have to dig all the way.
I've heard of that.
Well, that was a pretty mean trick.
Well,
I never did that, but I know others that did.
you were skilled in the arts of doing those things, I guess, or somebody in the neighborhood was. I don't believe I ever heard of that before, as a matter of fact. Well, you grew up and worked on the farm, and then where'd you meet your wife?
In high school.
You went to high school
The
at
old-
what, Sharp?
At the old Sharp. In fact, we attended, she and I, no, she didn't, but I did. I attended the first year in the new school building after the old frame school building.
Now, they built a 2-year school at Sharp somewhere around 1920 or something
like that.
And then they came back and built, one of the most modern and nice school buildings in the county, I suppose. At least I thought it was. And what year did you graduate?
1940.
So you were there when they won the state championship.
Oh yes, 1938.
38 you were.
Played against St. Xavier in Louisville. I believe the score was 23-26.
Uh-huh. Had Jim King and Red. I remember Red
Yes.
Culp real well because he went to Murray State where I was going. And, at least I started in the fall of 1940. Now, so you met your wife at, what was her name?
Alice Bailey.
Well, I notice Alice is right here with us, so we're going to talk to her a little bit. Tell us about your mom and dad and maybe your grandparents, if you can think of.
Well, my father's name is Clivey Lee Bailey, and my mother's name was Lena Bell Phelps. And they got married, I guess, in about 19 and, well, I was born in 1922, and they had been married 2 or 3 years before that. Because, no, it's longer than that, because my brother was 3 years older than me, and he died in infancy, and never did take a breath. Old Dr. Stinson delivered us all, and my sister, Arlena DeMott now, she's 3 years younger than me. And when she was 6 years old and I was 9, my mother took sick with sore throat. They had flu all that year and that winter, and she took it first, and then my dad took it, and then she got when he took it, she got up and started in milking the cows, and she took sore throat and never did get up.
Well,
And had to just go back to bed and stayed 3 years and died when I was 12 then. So.
well, that was a sad situation.
And I went to Oak Hill School and
So you
tried to be the fastest runner in Wolf Over the River.
yeah. Well, you were fast enough to catch Bruce some way or other, weren't you?
Well, I don't know. I think he caught me. I was a year younger. I mean, I was a year behind him, and he graduated. I mean, he was a sophomore and I was a freshman, and we were going on a last day school picnic, and so I had never thought about him all during my freshman year. And then he walked up behind me and he says, "Could I be with you today?" And that started things off right then. At the end of my freshman year and his sophomore year.
Well, I was going to. Did you ever hear of a girl who set her cap for a boy?
Well, I've heard of it, but I never did set my cap.
Okay. You were captured yourself.
Somehow.
Well, that's a very, very fine story. Well, thank you for talking with us. Bruce, we better get back and find out some of the early things around town here. Did you tell me that you remembered a cotton gin in Benton?
Yes, I do. And my father told me, whether this is accurate or not, but it was the northernmost cotton gin in the United States, here at Benton. Yes, I remember it.
Now, the countryside has changed a good little bit, even since you completed high school.
Oh, Lynch, yes, it certainly has.
When I read a story once, of course the story wasn't true, but it said when Sharp won the state championship that a man had heard about it, and he swam the river and rented a horse and rode all the way to Sharp to bring the news. Well, of course that wasn't so.
No.
As a big city reporter's tale, trying to make it look more primitive than it was. But we listened to the broadcast on WHAS Louisville, and we knew it. That Sharp had won, of course, as soon as the people in the gym knew it.
That's right.
Just about, as soon as the announcer could tell it. But, and I remember one thing about that. On Monday, there were, let's see, in 38, I guess that was the last year we had all 8 high schools. And every one of them dismissed school and went Sharp and spent the day. I know we rode from Hardin down there in an old cattle truck. There were no school buses.
Oh, no.
And so some farmer, I don't remember now who it was, seemed like it was John Crosby, drove the truck down for a Hardin student body to go, and we had a pep rally all day long celebrating Sharp's great victory. And of course the news had come in by Monday that, well, no, I guess it was the next week. It almost had another celebration. The St. X won the National Catholic Tournament that year, and since Sharp had beaten them, they felt they were the best team in America.
Yes.
They're certainly one of the best. Well, what did you, how have you made a living since then? We've got to get down to more basics here.
Well, as soon as I graduated from high school, I went to St. Louis, and I had an uncle by marriage working for the American Telephone Telegraph Company. And he had influence enough to get me a job with the Southwestern Bell.
Mm-hmm.
So I started shortly after graduation. We were coming out of the Depression, and they were hiring a few people. And I got a job with the Southwestern Bell, and I stayed with the Bell Company until I retired in 1976.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember a famous telephone man, Uncle Tommy Johnson, we used to call him, who had Rosa Claire, Illinois? Was he kin to you?
Yes. We were distant relatives, but I felt closer than a distant relative. I felt real close to him. Oh, yes, I knew Uncle Tom well.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, on his birthday at Sharp, he would go out and climb a telephone pole to keep in practice.
Put on his spike.
Right.
Go shimmering right up.
That's right.
He was a great churchgoer too, wasn't he? I used to see him at more gospel meetings than I
see him everywhere.
He always seemed to manage to get away and to be there. Well, so you worked out of the St. Louis office.
Started out out of St. Louis, and then shortly they had construction gangs, 8 and 10 men on a big truck, and they'd string wire, which this is unheard of now. They would string wire, for instance. There was one place, Bowling Green, Missouri, we strung a group, which is 4 wires from Bowling Green, Missouri to St. Louis. Well, you don't string wires now. It's all goes through the airways, or something different anyway.
Yeah.
And
it's either a microwave link or they use satellites.
Right. Something like that. And I wasn't married at the time, and all the men would go out on unlocated construction, and I worked just about over the entire state of Missouri till the war came along.
And did you go in service?
Yes, I went into the Marines.
Mm-hmm. They were looking for a few good men.
Well, they were looking for men. I don't know if I'd qualify on that good.
Where did you serve? Did you have to go to the South Pacific?
Yes, sir. I think I spent close to 20 months in the South Pacific. I don't remember exactly how long it was now. I'd have to check my discharge records.
You came back to West Kentucky. Had they built any plants at Calvert when you got back?
No, I came back to Missouri, my home. To my old job at the telephone company, and she and I got married and lived in Missouri about 7 years. And then in 1950 we moved back here.
And you worked where there?
I worked in Fayette, Missouri, which is a town about the center of the state of Missouri, and it's famous for, I believe they call it Central College. It's Methodist College there. And in 1950, we moved back here.
In Kentucky, after 1950, did you have one company you worked for?
I transferred to the Southern Bell through the AT&T company to the Southern Bell, which later became South Central Bell.
South Central.
So I retired with. In fact, that's the only job I've ever had as a telephone company. I stayed with them.
35 years.
Very good firm, Ma Bell, and personally, I'm sad that they broke up AT&T.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
All right. Do you know any particular unusual stories or events that have happened over the years that you could recall?
You mean it like in my childhood days or something like that?
Well, either that or more recently, for that matter. I guess we better find out if you had any children.
Oh, yes. I've got 2 boys and a girl. One of the boys lives in Paducah, Michael Johnston, and one lives in, just outside of Chicago, David. And my daughter, Jan, married and is living in out of Nashville, close to Franklin.
Are there any grandchildren?
Yes, I've got 5 grandchildren. Yes.
And some of them are near enough you get to see them once in a while.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You have two instead.
Yeah, I have 2 grandchildren that's dead.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I'd like to ask you about are perhaps old-time customs that you can recall. There didn't used to be hospitals in every town. In fact, we only got a hospital in Marshall County in '64. How were the people treated? Where did the nurses come from? Did the neighbors come in and take care of you? Or?
Well, there's, yes, the neighbors did. We'd have certain people that I well remember that there was just nothing like them around a sick bed. For instance, a Mr. Willie Nichols.
Mm-hmm.
When anyone got sick, Mr. Willie Nichols was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he would do anything that there is to do, Willie Nichols would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody just appreciated him for it. He was just a great man for such. And there was 1937 when the tree fell on my Uncle Archie Johnston. He was there every day and did everything that... So this is the nursing out that was done.
When people died, I've heard my dad say, I believe, that someone in the neighborhood, they called laying them out. They'd maybe buy a coffin somewhere, but they didn't use funeral homes in quite the way they do now.
Well, I might relate a little story to that, if it's all right. In fact, to go beyond that, I have heard people talk of a cooling board,
Mm-hmm.
which actually, this is after a person would die, they would lay him on what they call the cooling board, so that it would be straight for the casket or coffin, whichever the case might
Mm-hmm.
be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, there was an old couple that lived in our area, named Uncle Tom and Aunt Lottie. And there was a peculiar thing about Aunt Lottie. If you engaged her in a conversation, she would say always, "Well, it's been a right nice day." And this was a part of her.
Mm-hmm.
So, in those days also, if a person got sick, he didn't go up to the hospital, he got well or died at home. Well, this was the case of Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom got sick and he passed away at home. And in those days, you didn't take them to the funeral home. The funeral director came there, brought the casket, and laid the body out in the casket, and took all the furniture out of the living room, except chairs,
Mm-hmm.
and then would begin a wake in the home, and also the funeral, in many cases, were held in the home. Well, this was the case of Uncle Tom. So, he having no, they had no relatives at all there. And so, also, when they took the body to the cemetery, the family car would always proceed to lead the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't have a family car, and they had no family there to provide a car. They were illiterate, and they couldn't have driven a car if they'd had one.
So a neighbor took her.
We'll just call him Stoney,
Mm-hmm.
took her to the, and volunteered for the lead car to the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after it was over, she decided to come back and spend the first night following the funeral at home. And Stoney brought the car back and parked in front of her house, and she got out, took a step toward the house, and turned around and said to Stoney, "Well, it's been a right nice day."
Thank you so much, Bruce Johnston, and your wife. We thank you for coming to our oral history broadcast. And I see our time is gone. I'm Ray Mofield. We return you now to our studio in Benton.